The grandfather clock in the marble hallway struck 4 in the morning, each chime a countdown to freedom or disaster. Amara couldn't decide which. Her hands shook as she zipped the duffel bag, wincing at every sound that seemed amplified in the pre-dawn silence of the Cole mansion. Inside the bag, 3 changes of clothes, her grandmother's necklace, $2,000 in cash she'd saved from her salary, and a positive pregnancy test wrapped in tissue paper like a secret she couldn't bear to speak aloud. 6 weeks. That's how long she'd known. 6 weeks of morning sickness she'd hidden, of watching Adrian Cole move through his billion-dollar empire like a king who'd never noticed the maid's daughter had fallen hopelessly, stupidly in love with him. 6 weeks of knowing she had to leave before he discovered the truth and offered her something worse than rejection. Pity masked as responsibility. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive deep into Amara's impossible choice, I want to know where you're watching from right now. Drop your city in the comments because I love seeing our community span the globe. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now because this story is going to take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't want to miss. Trust me, the twist coming will leave you speechless. Now, back to that mansion where everything is about to change. Amara took one last look at the bedroom that had been hers for 3 months. Not as a maid. She'd stopped being just staff the night Adrian had kissed her in the rain after the charity gala. Both of them soaked and laughing, his walls finally crumbling after months of heated glances and conversations that lasted until sunrise. That was 4 months ago, before the business trip to Singapore, before he'd come back different, distant, his phone conversations clipped and secretive, before she'd overheard him tell his attorney that marriage wasn't in his plans, that his fathers will be damned. He'd find another way to secure the company without tying himself down. Before she'd taken the pregnancy test that turned her world inside out. She'd told herself she meant nothing to him, that their time together had been a diversion for a man who could have anyone, that leaving was self-preservation, not cowardice. She'd told herself a lot of lies these past 6 weeks. The duffel bag felt impossibly heavy as she crept down the hallway, past the gallery of family portraits. Generations of Coles staring down at her with judgment she probably deserved. The east staircase was her best bet. It led directly to the service entrance, far from Adrian's wing of the mansion, far from the bed they'd shared, where he'd traced the curve of her spine and whispered things that felt like promises but were probably just pillow talk for men like him. Her feet were silent on the imported Italian marble. She'd walked these halls for 2 years, first as her mother's helper when Margaret Bennett worked as the estate manager, then on her own after her mother's sudden death from an aneurysm. Adrian had insisted she stay, had given her a job in his private library cataloging his rare book collection, had paid for her online college courses, had been kind in ways that made her defenses crumble, had ruined her for any other man with a single kiss. The service entrance was ahead, just beyond the kitchen. Dawn was still an hour away. She'd catch the first bus into the city, disappear into Philadelphia's sprawl, find a cheap apartment in a neighborhood where billionaires didn't venture. She'd finish her degree remotely, find work, raise this baby alone. She'd survive. She always had. Her hand touched the door handle, cold metal against her palm. Going somewhere, Amara? Her heart stopped. The voice came from the shadows near the pantry, smooth and dark as expensive whiskey. Adrian Cole stepped into the dim light from the hallway sconces. And even at 4 in the morning, even in just pajama pants and a t-shirt, he looked like everything she couldn't have. 6 feet 3 inches of controlled power, dark hair disheveled from sleep, eyes the color of smoke that saw too much always had, a jaw sharp enough to cut glass and a mouth that knew exactly how to destroy her resolve. He looked at the duffel bag, then at her face, and something flickered in his expression that might have been hurt if she believed him capable of that emotion. Adrian. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I didn't want to wake anyone. I was just leaving. It wasn't a question. In the middle of the night, without a word. He moved closer, and she caught his scent. Cedar and something expensive she could never identify but would recognize anywhere. Were you even going to say goodbye? I left a note. In the library. I thought that was better than... Better than what? Looking me in the eye. His voice was controlled, but tension radiated from him like heat. After everything, you were going to disappear like I meant nothing? The irony almost made her laugh. He meant everything. That was the problem. You'll be fine, she managed. You don't need me cluttering up your life. I'm grateful for everything you've done. But it's time I stop. One word, sharp as a blade. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, and suddenly she could feel his body heat, could see the muscle ticking in his jaw. Stop lying. To me. To yourself. Whatever you're running from, we face it together. There's no together, Adrian. There never really was. She forced the words out, each one cutting her throat. You made that clear when you told your attorney marriage wasn't in your plans. When you started taking calls in private and looking at me like I was a complication you needed to manage. His eyes widened, genuine shock replacing the anger. You heard that conversation. I hear a lot of things. I'm very good at being invisible. It's a survival skill. She shifted the duffel bag, needing to move to go, before she shattered completely. Let me leave with some dignity, please. Don't make this harder. Harder than what? His hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Harder than watching you walk away? Harder than spending 6 weeks watching you pull away from me and not knowing why? Harder than waking up 30 minutes ago to find your side of the bed cold and your closet empty? 6 weeks. He'd noticed. Of course he had. I'm pregnant. The words exploded into the silence like grenades. She hadn't meant to say them, had planned to be gone before he ever found out. But his hand on her wrist, the raw honesty in his voice, the way he looked at her like she mattered, it shattered every defense she'd built. Adrian went absolutely still. His grip on her wrist loosened but didn't release. What did you say? His voice was barely a whisper. I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out 6 weeks ago. And before you say anything, I don't want your money or your responsibility or whatever solution your lawyers can draw up. I'm leaving. I'm going to raise this baby alone. You're free to marry me. The world tilted sideways. Amara stared at him, certain she'd misheard. What? Marry me? Adrian's free hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. That's the one sentence, Amara. The only one that matters. Marry me. Not because of the baby, though God, a baby. His voice cracked. Marry me because I've been in love with you since you argued with me about the proper way to organize a library. Marry me because you're the only person who's ever looked at me and seen Adrian, not the Cole fortune. Marry me because the thought of you walking out that door is killing me. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. The phone calls, she whispered. The distance, your attorney, was helping me dissolve the clause in my father's will that required me to marry someone from our social circle to inherit full control of the company. Adrian's eyes blazed with intensity. I was fighting to be free to choose you without losing everything. I was distant because I was terrified of scaring you away before I could offer you a real choice, not a relationship built on power imbalances and obligations. The duffel bag slipped from her numb fingers, hitting the marble with a dull thud. You love me. Her voice broke on the question. Desperately, completely, so much it terrifies me. His forehead touched hers. And you're carrying our child. Amara, you're carrying our child. And you were going to face that alone because you didn't think you deserved me? Because you thought I'd see you as an obligation? Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable.
I'm nobody, Adrian.
I'm the estate manager's daughter. You're a billionaire. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone. His lips brushed her temple, her cheekbone, the corner of her mouth. I want you. Messy, stubborn, brilliant you. I want breakfast debates and midnight library sessions and a future I can't even imagine without you in it. I want our baby. I want everything. This is insane, she breathed. But her hands were fisting in his shirt, holding on instead of pushing away. Probably. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, and what she saw there stole her breath. But say yes anyway. Say yes, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. Say yes, and we'll figure everything else out together. The grandfather clock chimed 4:30. Dawn was coming, and Amara Bennett stood in the hallway of a mansion that might become her home, pregnant with a billionaire's baby, being offered everything she'd ever wanted and never believed she could have. One sentence had stopped her. One answer would change everything. The question was, did she have the courage to say it? Amara didn't say yes. She didn't say no either. What she did was pull away from Adrian's embrace, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs, and whisper the only truth she could manage. I need time to think. The flash of pain across his face nearly broke her resolve. But he nodded, stepping back to give her space. How much time? I don't know. A day. Maybe 2. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the mansion's perfect climate control. This is huge, Adrian. A baby. Marriage. You're asking me to trust that this is real. But 6 weeks ago you could barely look at me. Because I was fighting with lawyers 12 hours a day trying to break a legal clause that's been in my family for 3 generations. His voice was raw. Because every time I looked at you, I wanted to tell you everything, and I couldn't until I knew I had something real to offer. Not a relationship where you'd always wonder if I chose you or the inheritance. And now I'm free. The will is dissolved. The company is mine regardless of who I marry. So when I ask you to be my wife, you'll know it's only because I can't imagine my life without you in it. The words should have made everything simple. They didn't. I need to clear my head, Amara said, bending to pick up her duffel bag. I'll stay in the guest house, just for a couple days. To think. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he just nodded. Okay, but Amara. He waited until she met his eyes. I meant every word, and I'm not giving up on us. She fled before she could do something stupid like kiss him and forget all the very real reasons this was complicated. The guest house sat at the far end of the estate, a cozy 2-bedroom cottage that had been her mother's home during the years Margaret Bennett had served as estate manager. Amara hadn't been inside since her mother's death 18 months ago, and stepping through the door felt like walking into a memory that still had sharp edges. Her mother's favorite blanket still draped over the couch. Books arranged by color on the shelf the way Margaret had liked. photographs on the mantel showing a life Amara had almost forgotten. Her mother laughing, vibrant, alive, and one photo that always made Amara's chest tight. Margaret and 5-year-old Amara on the estate lawn, both of them grinning at the camera while a teenage Adrian photobombed in the background, making ridiculous faces. She'd known him most of her life. That was another complication. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend and former college roommate, Lee Quinlan. "Lee girl, you've been radio silent for 3 days. I'm staging an intervention. Video call in 5 minutes or I'm showing up at that mansion." Despite everything, Amara smiled. Lee had been her anchor through her mother's death, through the complicated feelings she developed for Adrian, through every crisis in her 23 years. If anyone could help her think clearly, it was Lee. She answered the video call on the second ring. Lee's face filled the screen, dark eyes sharp with concern, her hair in box braids with gold cuffs, wearing what looked like pajamas despite it being almost 5 in the morning. "Finally, I was about to call the police. You look terrible. Good morning to you too. Don't deflect. What's going on? And why do you look like you've been crying?" Amara sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted.
I'm pregnant.
Lee's eyes went wide as saucers. "Holy shit. Does Mr. Billionaire know? I told him tonight, about an hour ago. And he asked me to marry him." Lee screamed. Actual screamed. Amara had to pull the phone away from her ear. "Lee, stop. It's not that simple. The hell it's not. Girl, you've been in love with that man since you were 15 years old. He's in love with you. You're having his baby. This is literally a romance novel come to life. I'm the estate manager's daughter, Lee. His world is private jets and board meetings and charity galas where the champagne costs more than my monthly salary. How am I supposed to fit into that? The same way you fit into his bed, with confidence and the knowledge that you belong there." Lee's expression softened. "Amara, honey, I love you, but you've got to stop letting your mother's fears become yours." The words hit like ice water. What's that supposed to mean? It means Margaret spent 20 years working for the Cole family, and she drilled into your head that you were staff, that you should be grateful for the opportunity, that people like you don't end up with people like them. Lee leaned closer to the camera. "But your mom was wrong. Not about being grateful or working hard, but about your worth. You're brilliant. You're kind. You're getting your degree in library science while cataloging a collection most professionals would kill to access. You're not less than Adrian Cole. You're his equal. And if he's smart enough to see that, why can't you?" Amara's throat went tight. Because what if he wakes up one day and realizes he made a mistake? What if the reality of being married to someone from my background becomes embarrassing? What if his family, his parents are dead, Amara, has been for 6 years. Car accident, remember? It's just him and that ancient board of directors who'll do whatever he tells them because he's tripled the company's value since taking over. Lee's voice gentled. "What are you really afraid of?" The truth sat in Amara's chest like a stone. That I'm not enough. That the baby is the only reason he's asking. That one day he'll look at me and see what Diane saw. Diane, Adrian's ex-fiancée. The perfectly polished socialite who'd lasted 3 months before Adrian called off the engagement 2 years ago. Amara had been 17, home from her first semester of community college, when she'd overheard Diane telling her friends that Adrian would never seriously consider someone like the help's daughter. That girls like Amara were good for a distraction but not for forever. Those words had burrowed under Amara's skin and lived there ever since. Diane Hartwell was a garbage human who got dumped because Adrian figured out she cared more about his money than him, Lee said fiercely. She's also married to some tech bro in San Francisco now and has zero relevance to your life. Stop letting her voice take up space in your head. It's not just her voice. It's everyone's. Society's. The world that says a billionaire and a maid's daughter don't belong together. Screw society. Did Adrian say he loves you? Yes. Did he look you in the eye when he said it? Amara thought about the intensity in Adrian's gaze, the raw honesty that had stripped away every defense. Yes. Then believe him. And more importantly, believe in yourself. Lee paused. What does your gut tell you? Not your fear. Not Diane's voice. Not society's expectations. Your gut. What does it say? Amara closed her eyes, pressing a hand to her still flat stomach where a tiny life was growing. A life that was half her and half Adrian. A miracle she hadn't planned but already loved with a ferocity that terrified her. Her gut said that Adrian Cole had been her best friend before he was her lover, that he'd held her while she grieved her mother, had challenged her mind in debates that lasted until sunrise, had looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in any room even when she wore jeans and his old college sweatshirt. Her gut said he'd never lied to her, never made her feel small, never treated her like she was less than him despite the massive gap in their bank accounts. Her gut said she was running because she was terrified of being happy, because happiness felt like a fragile thing that could be stolen at any moment. Like her mother's life had been stolen by an aneurysm on a random Tuesday. Like her father had stolen himself when he'd walked out before Amara was born, deciding fatherhood wasn't worth the inconvenience.
I'm scared, Amara whispered.
Of course you are. Love is terrifying. But you know what's scarier? Letting fear make your decisions. Running away from the best thing that's ever happened to you because you're convinced you don't deserve it. Lee's smile was soft, knowing. Your mom would want you to be happy, Amara. She'd want you to take the risk. To choose love even when it's scary. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just finally decided to listen. Lee checked her phone. It's almost 6 there. Go take a shower. Eat something. Then march back to that mansion and tell that man yes. Just like that. Just like that. Life's too short for maybe. Trust me on this. They said goodbye, and Amara sat in the cottage that smelled like her mother's lavender perfume, holding her phone and thinking about choices. Her mother had chosen stability over passion, safety over risk. She'd worked for the Cole family for 20 years, had been respected and valued, but had she been happy? Had she looked at her life and felt fulfilled? Or had she settled for good enough because great seemed impossible? Amara would never know, but she could choose differently. She could choose the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of a life with Adrian, of raising their child together, of building something real despite the odds, where she could run, stay safe, protect herself from potential heartbreak by guaranteeing loneliness. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a new choice. Amara stood, determination settling into her bones, and headed for the shower. She had a billionaire to say yes to. Amara showered, changed into a simple blue dress that had always been Adrian's favorite, and walked back to the main mansion with her heart in her throat and the word yes ready on her lips. It was barely 7 in the morning, but she knew Adrian would be awake. He kept ungodly hours, always had. She'd find him in his office or the gym, and she'd tell him she was done running, that she chose him, them. the terrifying, beautiful possibility of forever. But when she entered through the main entrance this time, not slinking through service doors like someone who didn't belong, she heard voices coming from the formal dining room. Raised voices. Angry voices. One was Adrian's. The other was female, older, sharp as cut glass. Amara froze in the hallway. "You have no right to come here and make demands, Victoria." Adrian's voice was ice over steel. "The will is dissolved. The lawyers confirmed it. I don't need your approval or the board's blessing to live my life. You dissolved the marriage clause, yes. Very clever." The woman's voice dripped with disdain. "But did you read the fine print, Adrian? The addendum your father added 6 months before he died." A pause. "Cold and dangerous." "What addendum?" "The one that states if you produce an heir outside of wedlock, control of the company reverts to the board of trustees until said child reaches age 25. Your father was many things, but he wasn't stupid. He knew you might try to circumvent his wishes, so he built an insurance." Amara's blood turned to ice. "That's impossible," Adrian said, but doubt crept into his voice. "My lawyers would have found that." "Your lawyers found what the original documents showed. But there was a codicil filed separately with the family trust. Sealed. Only accessible to board members and direct family." The woman's satisfaction was audible. "I'm both. So when my sources informed me that your little librarian is carrying your bastard, I did my due diligence." The word bastard hit Amara like a slap. "Don't you dare call my child that." Adrian's voice went deadly quiet. "And how the hell do you know about the pregnancy? We only found out ourselves last night." "I have eyes everywhere, nephew. Did you really think you could hide a relationship with the help? The staff talks. Your driver mentioned taking her to a medical clinic 3 weeks ago. A clinic that specializes in obstetrics." The woman paused. "You've always been reckless, Adrian. But this is a new level of stupid. Throwing away a billion-dollar empire for what? Love?" She said the word like it was something distasteful. "Get out of my house, Victoria. This isn't your house. Not entirely. I own 30% of the family trust, which gives me say in how the Cole legacy is managed. And I'm telling you right now, if you marry that girl, if you legitimize that child before the board approves, we will invoke the codicil. You'll lose operational control of everything your father built." "Then I'll lose it." Adrian's voice was flat, final. "I'm not giving up my family for the company." Silence. Then Victoria laughed, brittle and cold. "You say that now. But when you're watching board members dismantle your father's vision, when you're shut out of decisions, when that girl realizes she's cost you everything, how long before you resent her? Before you resent the child." Her voice went softer, more poisonous. "I'm offering you a way out, Adrian. Marry someone appropriate. Someone from our world. Let the girl go with enough money to raise the child comfortably. You can even have visitation rights. But don't destroy the Cole empire because you think you're in love with someone who was literally hired help." Amara couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, protective. "I'm going to say this once," Adrian said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Amara Bennett is the woman I love, the mother of my child. And in every way that matters, she's more family to me than you've ever been. So you can take your codicil and your threats and your classist bullshit and get the hell out of my home. If the board wants a war, they'll get one. But I'm not negotiating my future with people who think bloodlines matter more than character. You're making a mistake."
No.
My father made the mistake when he put conditions on love. I'm correcting it. Footsteps clicked on marble, heading toward the hallway, toward Amara. She pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering, as an older woman emerged from the dining room. Victoria Cole was 70 if she was a day, dressed in a Chanel suit that probably cost more than a car, with steel gray hair and eyes that could freeze blood. Those eyes landed on Amara, and recognition flickered across the woman's face. Well, Victoria stopped, looking Amara up and down with obvious disdain. The gold digger herself. Tell me, dear, how does it feel knowing you're about to cost the man you claim to love everything he's worked for? Victoria, leave. Now. Adrian appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of fury. But Victoria ignored him, stepping closer to Amara. You're pretty, I'll give you that, and I'm sure you're very good at what you do. But you're not one of us. You'll never be one of us. And the longer you stay, the more damage you'll cause. She smiled, sharp and cruel. Do the right thing. Take the money and disappear. Let Adrian marry someone appropriate and secure his legacy. Don't you want what's best for him? The question was a knife expertly placed. Don't answer her, Adrian said, crossing the space between them in 3 strides. He positioned himself between Amara and his aunt. Protective. Victoria is leaving. Aren't you, Aunt? Victoria studied them both for a long moment. The board meeting is scheduled for next week. We'll be voting on whether to invoke the codicil. I'd suggest you make the right choice before then, Adrian. For everyone's sake. She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and veiled threats. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the marble hallway. Adrian turned to Amara, and the anguish in his eyes nearly broke her. I'm so sorry you heard that. I didn't know she was coming. I didn't know about any codicil. He reached for her, and she let him take her hands. But it doesn't change anything. Whatever they threaten, whatever they do, I'm not walking away from you. Adrian. Amara's voice shook. She said you'll lose control of the company. Everything your father built. I don't care. You should care. This is your legacy. Your family's empire. I can't be the reason you lose it. You're not the reason. His grip tightened on her hands. My father's archaic rules are the reason. The board's greed is the reason. But you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'll be damned if I let them take that away. Amara pulled her hands free, stepping back. Her mind was racing, fear and love and impossible choices colliding. What if she's right? What if I'm selfish for staying? What if you end up resenting me, resenting our baby, when you lose everything? That's not going to happen. You don't know that. Tears burned her eyes. You love that company, Adrian. You've given everything to build it into what it is today. And I'm asking you to risk it all for what? For me? For a relationship that's only been real for 4 months. For our family. He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. For a life that means something beyond profit margins and board meetings. Amara, I love the company, yes, but I don't need it to be happy. I need you. What if I can't live with the cost? The question escaped before she could stop it. What if I can't look at our child and not think about everything you gave up? What if Victoria is right and I'm being selfish? Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Hurt, deep and cutting. Is that what you really think? That loving me is selfish? I think love isn't always enough. Amara's voice broke. I think sometimes the brave thing is walking away, even when you want to stay. My mother taught me that. She could have pursued her own dreams, her own happiness, but she chose stability for me. She chose the safe path. And was she happy? Adrian asked quietly. The question gutted her because she knew the answer. Margaret Bennett had been content, respected, valued, but happy? Truly, deeply happy? Amara didn't think so. I came here to say yes, Amara whispered. I came to tell you I choose us. But then I heard Victoria, and I realized how much you'd be sacrificing, and I don't know if I can do that to you. Adrian's hands fell away from her face. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need time, real time, to think about what's best for everyone, not just what I want. What about what I want? His voice was raw. Don't I get a say in my own life? Of course you do. But this isn't just about you anymore. It's about our child. About the life we'd be bringing them into. About whether I can live with myself if you lose everything because of me. Amara backed toward the door, every instinct screaming at her to stay, even as her fear pushed her away. I'm going back to the guest house. I need space to think. Amara, don't do this. Don't let Victoria win. This isn't about her winning. It's about making sure everyone doesn't lose. She turned before he could see her crying. I'll give you an answer before the board meeting. Promise. But I need time. She fled for the second time in 12 hours, her heart splintering with every step. Behind her, Adrian stood in the hallway of his billion-dollar mansion, surrounded by luxury and legacy and everything he'd worked for, and for the first time in his life, felt completely powerless. 3 days passed. Amara stayed in the guest house, emerging only for food and air. Adrian texted twice a day, simple messages that broke her heart. Day 1, I love you. That hasn't changed. Day 2, the board meeting is in 5 days. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. But I'm fighting for us. Day 3, our baby deserves parents who are brave enough to choose love. I'm trying to be that brave. I hope you are too. Lee called every night, listening to Amara spiral and offering the same advice. Follow your heart. But Amara's heart was torn between loving Adrian and protecting him from the cost of loving her back. On day 4, something happened that changed everything. A courier arrived at the guest house with a package. Inside was a leather journal, old and worn, with a note in handwriting Amara recognized. Her mother's handwriting. The note read, "For Amara, to be opened when she needs to remember that love is always worth the risk. Love, Mom." With shaking hands, Amara opened the journal and began to read her mother's private thoughts, the ones Margaret had never spoken aloud. And what she found there shattered everything she thought she knew about her mother's choices, her own worth, and what it truly meant to be brave. The journal entries started 24 years ago, written in her mother's precise handwriting. September 15th. Met someone today. His name is Jonathan Cole. He's the younger brother of the estate owner, visiting from London. He has kind eyes and a laugh that makes me forget I'm supposed to be professional. I know this is dangerous. I know my place. But God help me, when he looks at me, I feel seen. Amara's breath caught. Jonathan Cole, Adrian's uncle, the one who died in the car accident with Adrian's parents 6 years ago. She kept reading, her hands trembling. October 3rd. Jonathan kissed me today in the garden. I should have stopped him, should have remembered that I'm staff and he's family. But I didn't. I kissed him back and felt alive for the first time in years. Is this what happiness feels like? This terrifying, wonderful free fall? November 12th.
I'm pregnant.
Jonathan doesn't know yet. I'm scared to tell him because what if this ruins everything? What if he sees me differently now? What if I'm just a mistake he'll want to erase? The entries continued, documenting a secret relationship, stolen moments, and Margaret's growing fear that she wasn't enough for a man from the Cole family. December 1st. I told him. Jonathan asked me to marry him immediately, said he didn't care what his family thought, that he loved me, that we'd figure it out together. I wanted to say yes so badly it hurt, but then Victoria found out. She threatened Jonathan's inheritance, his position in the family company, everything. Said I was a gold digger trying to trap him, that our child would be a stain on the Cole legacy. December 8th. Jonathan is fighting for us, fighting his family, the lawyers, everyone. But I see what it's costing him. The stress, the family fracturing. His brother barely speaks to him. Victoria has turned the whole board against him. And I keep thinking, is love supposed to hurt this many people? Amara's tears fell onto the pages, smudging ink that was decades old. December 20th. I left, took the severance money Victoria offered and disappeared. Didn't tell Jonathan where I was going. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But I can't watch him destroy his life for me. Can't be the reason his family falls apart. I love him too much to let him sacrifice everything. January 15th. Jonathan found me, begged me to come back, said he'd already lost everything fighting for us, so what did it matter now? But I wouldn't.
So elite.
Told him I didn't love him enough to deal with his family's drama. Told him to go back to London and forget us. The look in his eyes when I said it nearly killed me. But it was kinder than watching him resent me later. February 10th. Jonathan's gone back to London. I heard through mutual friends that he's throwing himself into work, trying to move on. Good. He deserves someone from his world. Someone who won't cost him everything. I'll raise our daughter alone and tell her the truth someday. That her father loved us, but love wasn't enough to bridge the gap between our worlds. The entries jumped forward years. Amara flipped through pages documenting her childhood. Her mother's return to work at the Cole estate after Jonathan had safely relocated to Europe. Margaret's careful navigation of a world where she'd once almost belonged. Then, an entry from 6 years ago, right after the accident. June 3rd. Jonathan is dead.
Car accident.
Adrian's parents, too. I can't breathe. Can't think past the fact that Jonathan died never knowing his daughter. Never knowing that I lied when I said I didn't love him. I robbed us both of 20 years because I was scared. Because I let Victoria and fear make my choices for me. June 5th. Adrian came to see me today. Told me Jonathan left me something in his will. A letter. I haven't been able to open it yet. Tucked between the pages was an envelope, yellowed with age, addressed to Margaret Bennett in masculine handwriting. Amara opened it with shaking hands. My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I hope I at least had the chance to know my daughter before the end. But in case I didn't, there are things you need to know. I never stopped loving you. Never stopped hoping you'd change your mind. I went to London because you asked me to, but I never moved on. Never married. Never found anyone who came close to what we had. Victoria told me years later that she'd threatened you, paid you off to leave. I should have known. Should have fought harder. But by the time I learned the truth, you'd built a life without me, and I didn't want to disrupt that. But I'm leaving you money. Enough that you never have to work again if you don't want to. Enough that our daughter can have every opportunity. And I'm leaving you this message. You were wrong. Love is worth the cost. Even when it's hard. even when it tears families apart and forces impossible choices. Because a life without love, without the person who makes you whole, isn't really living. It's just existing. And I've existed for 20 years when I could have lived. Don't let our daughter make the same mistake. Don't let her think she's not worthy of fighting for. Don't let her believe that love has to be easy to be real. I loved you, Margaret. I loved you until my last breath. And my only regret is that I didn't fight harder to make you believe it. All my love, always. Jonathan. Amara pressed the letter to her chest, sobbing. Her father. Jonathan Cole was her father. The man in the photos she'd seen in the estate gallery. The one with Adrian's same dark hair and strong jaw. She'd walked past his portrait 100 times and never known. The final journal entry was dated 1 week before her mother's death. I'm leaving this for Amara because I see her making the same mistakes I did. She's in love with Adrian, though she won't admit it, and he's in love with her. I see it in how he looks at her, how he finds excuses to be near her. But she's convinced herself she's not good enough, that loving a Cole means losing herself. I need her to know the truth, that I was wrong to run, that the years I lost with Jonathan, that he lost with her, were wasted because I was a coward, because I let other people's opinions matter more than my own happiness. If Adrian Cole loves my daughter the way Jonathan loved me, she needs to be brave enough to stay, to fight, to choose love even when it's terrifying. Because regret is so much worse than risk. And a life half-lived is no life at all. Be brave, my darling girl. Braver than I was. Choose love. Choose happiness. Choose the man who looks at you like you hung the stars. Don't make my mistakes. Amara sat on the floor of the cottage, surrounded by her mother's secrets, and finally understood. Her mother hadn't chosen stability over passion. She'd chosen fear over love, and she'd regretted it for 20 years. Amara was doing the exact same thing. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. Amara. Just her name, but it held everything. Hope, fear, love. My father was Jonathan Cole, she said. Your uncle. Silence. Then, quietly, I know. What? I've known since my uncle died. He told me before the accident. Made me promise not to tell you unless Margaret gave permission. She never did. Adrian's voice was rough with emotion. You're family, Amara. You've always been family. Not because of money or bloodlines, but because you're Jonathan's daughter and my uncle loved you and your mother more than anything. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't my secret to tell. And because I didn't want you to think that's why I cared about you. Why I fell in love with you. He paused. You're not just my cousin's daughter to me. You're everything. Amara closed her eyes, tears streaming. I read my mother's journal. She ran because she was scared, and she regretted it for the rest of her life. So don't run. His voice cracked. Please, Amara, don't make her mistake. I'm not. The words came out strong, certain. I'm choosing you. Our family, whatever it costs. She heard his sharp intake of breath. You mean it. I mean it. My mother spent 20 years protecting your uncle from the cost of loving her, and all it did was make them both miserable. I'm not doing that to us. Amara stood, strength flooding through her. If the board wants a fight, we'll give them one. But I'm not walking away from you. Not now. Not ever. I'm coming to get you.
No.
I'm coming to you. She grabbed the journal, the letter, her phone. I'm done hiding in the guest house. I'm done acting like I don't belong. This is my family too. The Coles are my blood. And I'm not letting Victoria or anyone else make me feel like I'm less than them. She could hear the smile in Adrian's voice. I love you. I love you too. And Adrian. She paused at the door. The answer is yes. I'll marry you. I'll build a life with you. And we'll raise our baby to know they come from love, not shame. That they're wanted. Chosen. Amara. His voice broke on her name. I'm on my way. She ran across the estate grounds, past the gardens where her mother and Jonathan had stolen kisses, past the fountain where she'd first realized she loved Adrian, up the marble steps of the mansion that was her birthright as much as his. Adrian met her at the door, and she launched herself into his arms, kissing him with everything she had. Every fear, every hope, every ounce of love she'd been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. We're going to face hell this week, he murmured. The board meeting, Victoria's schemes, the media when this goes public. I know. It's going to be brutal. I know that too. She pulled back to meet his eyes. But I'm done being afraid of brutal. My parents lost 20 years because they were scared. We're not making that mistake. No, we're not. Adrian took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Together, together, they walked into the mansion hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. What they didn't know was that Victoria had one more card to play. One final secret that would test everything Amara thought she knew about the Cole family. And it was waiting for them in the form of a woman who'd just arrived from London, claiming to be Jonathan Cole's widow, with legal documents that said she owned 50% of everything. The woman standing in Adrian's living room looked like money and breeding and everything Amara had feared she could never compete with. She was in her early 50s, blonde, elegant in the way only European wealth could create. Her accent was British, her posture perfect, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. Adrian, darling, she said, as if they were old friends. I'm sorry to arrive unannounced, but this couldn't wait. Victoria stood beside her, smug satisfaction radiating from every pore. Adrian, Amara, allow me to introduce Charlotte Pembroke Cole, Jonathan's widow. The word widow hit like a physical blow. That's impossible, Adrian said flatly. My uncle never married. Actually, he did. Quietly. In London. 15 years ago. Charlotte pulled documents from her Hermes bag, spreading them on the coffee table. Marriage certificate. Joint assets agreements, and most importantly, Jonathan's revised will, which leaves 50% of his personal estate to me as his surviving spouse. Amara's mind reeled. Jonathan was married? For 15 years. He was lonely, heartbroken over some American woman who'd rejected him. Charlotte's gaze flickered to Amara with something that might have been pity. I helped him through that pain. We built a life together in London. Quiet, private. He preferred it that way after the drama with your family, Adrian. Why come forward now? Adrian's voice was ice. Jonathan died 6 years ago. Why wait? Because I didn't know about the money until recently. Jonathan handled the finances. When he died, I assumed everything went to the Cole family trust. Charlotte's expression hardened. Then my lawyers informed me that Jonathan had significant personal assets separate from the family holdings. Assets that legally belonged to me, including the trust fund he established for Margaret Bennett and her daughter. Amara's world tilted. What? Jonathan left your mother $3 million. You inherited it when she died, though apparently the lawyers have been trying to locate you to inform you. Charlotte smiled, cold and perfect. But if Jonathan and I were legally married, that money should have come to me. His widow, not his former mistress's child. The word mistress made Amara flinch. You need to leave, Adrian said quietly. Now. I'm not going anywhere until we settle this legally. I'm owed that money, Adrian, and I'm prepared to fight for it. Charlotte gathered her documents. My lawyers will be in touch. I suggest you get yours ready. She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and legal threats. Victoria lingered, her smile triumphant. This gets better and better. Not only is the girl illegitimate, but now there's questions about whether Jonathan's money even belongs to her. She looked at Amara with open disdain. Still think you belong in this family, dear? Get out, Adrian growled. When they were alone, Amara sank onto the couch, her hands shaking. This isn't real, she whispered. My father was married to someone else the whole time he was writing those letters to my mother, telling her he never moved on. We don't know that Charlotte is telling the truth, Adrian said, kneeling in front of her. Those documents could be forged, or they could be real, and my father was a liar, and my mother wasted her life mourning someone who'd already replaced her. Amara looked at him, pain radiating through her chest. What if love is just people lying to each other? What if nothing is real? This is real. Adrian took her hands, fierce and certain. Us, our baby, the life we're building. That's real, Amara. How do you know? Because I'm looking at you right now, and I've never been more certain of anything. He cupped her face. Whatever Charlotte wants, whatever Victoria schemes, whatever secrets come out, we face them together. That's the promise. Amara kissed him, desperate and clinging, needing something solid in a world that kept shifting. I'm scared, she whispered against his lips. Me too, but we're scared together. That's what matters. What neither of them knew was that Charlotte Pembroke Cole was lying about almost everything, and the real twist was about to destroy them all. The board meeting happened 3 days later, and it was a massacre. Victoria had rallied every member against Adrian. Charlotte sat in the gallery, her presence a constant reminder of unanswered questions. And the codicil was real, verified by 3 separate law firms. If Adrian acknowledged his child before the board approved, he'd lose operational control of Cole Enterprises for the next 25 years. There is, of course, a simple solution, Victoria announced to the 12 board members. Adrian can marry someone appropriate. We've all discussed this. Clarissa Hartwell is available. Good family, excellent connections. The marriage would satisfy the will's requirements without invoking the codicil. Amara sat in the back of the boardroom, feeling eyes on her, judging, calculating. Clarissa is Diane's cousin, Adrian said coldly, and I'm not marrying anyone except Amara. Then you're choosing to destroy this company. Victoria's voice rang with finality. The vote is clear. If you proceed with this inappropriate relationship, we invoke the codicil immediately. You'll be removed as CEO. The board will appoint new leadership. Everything your father built will be out of your control. And what about my inheritance from Jonathan? Amara found her voice, standing. I'm his daughter. I have rights to his personal estate. Charlotte stood as well, elegant and deadly. You have no proof Jonathan was your father. Your birth certificate lists no father. Your mother never filed paternity claims. And my marriage certificate predates your birth by 2 years. The lie was so smooth, so perfect, that for a moment even Amara doubted. That's impossible, she said. I saw the dates in my mother's journal. Journals aren't legal documents, dear. Anyone can write anything. Charlotte's smile was poison. My lawyers have already filed claims against Jonathan's personal estate, including the trust meant for you. Without DNA evidence, and with Jonathan dead, you have no proof of paternity. The room spun. You're lying? Adrian said, fury vibrating through him. My uncle told me himself that Amara was his daughter. Hearsay, not admissible in court. Victoria moved in for the kill. Face facts, Adrian. You're about to lose everything. The company, the inheritance, your reputation. All because you're too stubborn to see that this girl is nothing but trouble. Adrian looked at Amara across the boardroom, and she saw the truth in his eyes. He would give it all up for her, would walk away from billions, from his legacy, from everything he'd worked for. And she couldn't let him. I need air, Amara whispered, and fled the room before anyone could stop her. She made it to the hallway before the panic attack hit. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the crushing weight of it all. This was too much, too big. She was 23 years old, pregnant, and about to destroy a man's entire life. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Meet me in the parking garage. Level 3. I have information about Charlotte you need to see. Come alone. She should have told Adrian. Should have been smart. But she was desperate and drowning and grasping at anything that might help. So she went. The parking garage was dim, empty. Her footsteps echoed on concrete. Hello? She called out. A figure emerged from the shadows. But it wasn't Charlotte. It was a man she'd never seen before. Late 30s, dangerous eyes, a smile that made her skin crawl. Amara Bennett, he said. We need to talk about your father. The real story. The one that's going to cost you everything. He pulled out a gun, and Amara realized she'd walked straight into a trap. The man lowered the gun slightly, seeing her terror. Relax. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. He tucked the weapon away. My name is David Sheffield. I'm Adrian Sheffield's son. The lawyer helping Adrian? He's my father. Amara's heart hammered. Then why the gun? Why the cryptic text? Because Charlotte has people watching you, listening. I needed you away from the mansion, away from cameras. David pulled out a tablet. My father's been investigating Charlotte for a week, and we found something big. He pulled up documents, photos, bank statements. Charlotte Pembroke Cole isn't Jonathan's widow. She's a con artist. Real name Charlotte Mills. She's pulled this scam 3 times before, targeting wealthy men who died without clear heirs. She fabricates marriage certificates, creates false paper trails, then sues estates for settlements. Amara's knees went weak. The marriage certificate is fake? Completely. Jonathan never married anyone. He died loving your mother. David swiped to another document. But here's where it gets interesting. We found Jonathan's real will, the one he filed a week before he died. It explicitly names you as his daughter and sole heir to his personal fortune. $3 million, just like Charlotte said. But it's yours. All of it. Hope ignited in Amara's chest. Can you prove the marriage certificate is fake? Already done. We have the forger in custody. He's talking. Gave up Charlotte and everyone involved. David smiled grimly, including Victoria. Amara's breath caught. What? Victoria hired Charlotte. Paid her $50,000 to come here and create chaos. to pressure you into leaving by making you think Jonathan betrayed your mother, to make you doubt everything. David's expression hardened. She wanted you gone and Adrian compliant. This was her final play. Rage flooded through Amara, hot and clarifying. Where's Adrian? Still in the boardroom. The meeting went into recess. My father is presenting the evidence now. Amara ran, sprinted through the parking garage into the elevator up to the executive floor. She burst through the boardroom doors, breathless. Adrian was on his feet, facing Victoria across the table. His father's lawyer, the elder Sheffield, was presenting documents to the stunned board members. It's over, Victoria, Adrian said quietly. You hired a con artist to defraud my family. You've been embezzling from the company for years, and you tried to intimidate the woman I love into leaving. His voice went cold. You're done. Victoria's face was pale, her composure cracking. You can't prove any of this. Actually, we can. Adrian's eyes found Amara in the doorway, and relief flooded his features. And more importantly, the FBI is already on their way. As if on cue, federal agents entered the boardroom. Victoria was arrested along with Charlotte. Both of them led away in handcuffs, their schemes exposed. The board members sat in shocked silence. Regarding the codicil, the board chairman said carefully, in light of Victoria's fraud and the discovery that she falsified several trust documents, we're voting to nullify it entirely. The marriage clause is void. Adrian, you retain full control of the company. Adrian didn't even look at them. He was already crossing the room to Amara, pulling her into his arms. You're okay, he breathed against her hair. When you ran, I thought, I'm okay. We're okay. She pulled back to look at him. It's over, Adrian. We won.
No.
He cupped her face, his smile fierce and bright. We're just beginning. He dropped to one knee right there in the boardroom, pulling a ring from his pocket. Amara Bennett, daughter of Jonathan Cole, love of my life, mother of my child. Will you marry me? For real this time.
No threats.
No conditions. Just us. Through tears and laughter, Amara said the word that changed everything. Yes. The boardroom erupted in applause, and for the first time in weeks, Amara felt light. Free. Home. The wedding was planned for 2 weeks later, small and intimate in the mansion gardens where Margaret and Jonathan had first fallen in love. But 3 days before the ceremony, Adrian's lawyer called with news that changed everything. We found something else while investigating Charlotte, the elder Sheffield said, his voice strange. Jonathan left more than money. He left a letter, sealed, to be opened only if Amara ever got engaged to a Cole family member. They gathered in Adrian's office. Amara, Adrian, Jessa, and David Sheffield all stared at the envelope that had been locked in a safety deposit box for 6 years. Amara opened it with shaking hands. My dearest Amara, if you're reading this, you've fallen in love with someone from the Cole family. Given that Adrian is the only one worth a damn, I'm guessing it's him. Which means I need to tell you something I should have told your mother years ago. I didn't just love Margaret. I was obsessed with making myself worthy of her. I convinced myself that if I could just prove to my family that she deserved respect, that our love was legitimate, they'd accept us. So I spent years building wealth separate from the Cole fortune. Invested in technology startups, real estate, patents. I wanted to give Margaret a life where she'd never have to work for my family again, where she could hold her head high. By the time I'd built enough to walk away from the Cole empire entirely, she was gone, and I was too proud, too hurt, to chase her again. But I never stopped building, never stopped investing. And when I died, that separate fortune had grown to something extraordinary. Amara, you're not just inheriting $3 million. You're inheriting $1.2 billion in assets I built specifically so your mother would never have to bow to anyone. She never knew. I never got to tell her. But I'm telling you, you are a Cole. Not because of blood, though that's true too, but because you have the strength your mother had, the dignity she possessed, the grace she showed even when the world told her she wasn't enough. You are more than enough. You always have been. Use this fortune to build something meaningful, to show the world that the Coles aren't just about old money and older prejudices, to create the life your mother deserved. And Amara? Marry that boy. Adrian's a good man, just like his father was. Don't let fear steal your happiness like it stole mine. All my love, your father. Jonathan, the paper fell from Amara's nerveless fingers. $1.2 billion? She whispered. David Sheffield nodded, pulling up documents on his laptop. It's all verified. Investments, properties, tech patents that are still generating revenue. Your father was a genius investor. He built an empire outside the Cole family business, and it's all yours. Amara started laughing. Couldn't help it. The sound was half hysteria, half joy. What's funny? Adrian asked gently. I spent weeks terrified that loving you would cost you everything, that I'd destroy your empire. And the whole time, I was sitting on a bigger fortune than yours. She looked at him, tears streaming. We're both billionaires, Adrian. We're equals. You were always my equal, he said softly. The money just proves what I already knew. Jessa whooped. This is the best plot twist ever. The underdog was secretly richer than everyone the whole time. I'm living for this. But Amara's mind was already racing ahead. We can do so much good with this. Fund scholarships. Support women escaping poverty. Build programs that give people opportunities regardless of their background. She grabbed Adrian's hands. We can rewrite what it means to be a Cole. Make it about lifting people up instead of keeping them out. Adrian's smile was brilliant. We can do whatever you want. It's your money.
No.
Amara shook her head. It's our future, our child's legacy. Let's build something that would make both our fathers proud. He kissed her then, deep and sweet and full of promise. 3 days until the wedding, he murmured against her lips. Think you can wait that long to become Mrs. Cole? I've waited my whole life for you. 3 more days is nothing. Outside the office windows, the garden was being transformed for their ceremony. White flowers and soft lights, simple and perfect. In 3 days, Amara Bennett would become Amara Cole. Billionaire, philanthropist, wife, soon-to-be mother, and most importantly, herself, fully, finally, free. The garden ceremony was everything Amara had dreamed of and nothing she'd expected. She wore her mother's pearls and a simple ivory gown that accommodated the small bump just beginning to show. Jessa stood as maid of honor, crying before the ceremony even started. David Sheffield was Adrian's best man, having become a close friend over the past weeks. But the biggest surprise came as Amara walked down the aisle. Lining both sides were faces she recognized. Scholarship students her father had funded, now successful and thriving. Staff members from the estate who'd known her mother, who'd watched Amara grow up. Business leaders she and Adrian had already begun partnering with on their new foundation. And at the front, Adrian waited in a simple black suit, his eyes bright with unshed tears. When they joined hands, he whispered, You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You say that every day, she whispered back, smiling. I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives. The ceremony was short, intimate. When the officiant pronounced them married, Adrian kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. The reception was held in the mansion ballroom, transformed into something magical. But the most meaningful moment came during the toasts. Adrian stood, pulling Amara to her feet beside him. 6 months ago, the woman I love tried to leave because she didn't think she belonged in my world, he began. She thought she wasn't enough, that loving me would cost too much. His hand found hers, squeezed. But what she didn't realize is that she made my world worth living in. She brought light and purpose and meaning to a life that was all work and no heart. He turned to face her fully. Amara, you are a Cole now. Not because you married me, but because you always were. Your father's daughter. Your mother's legacy. And now you're building something that's going to change thousands of lives. Amara's throat tightened with emotion. 2 weeks earlier, they'd announced the Jonathan and Margaret Cole Foundation. $1 billion dedicated to scholarships, housing assistance, and job training for people from underserved communities. Amara would run it. Adrian would support her. Together, they'd rewrite what generational wealth could accomplish. I love you, she said simply. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Always, he promised. 6 months later, Amara gave birth to a daughter. They named her Margaret Yara Cole, after both her grandmothers. Victoria and Charlotte were both serving prison sentences. The company was thriving under Adrian's leadership. The foundation had already funded 200 scholarships. And on quiet evenings, Amara would sit in the garden where her parents had first fallen in love, holding her daughter, and tell her stories about the grandmother who'd worked these grounds with dignity and the grandfather who'd loved her from afar. You come from love, she'd whisper, from people who were brave enough to feel deeply, even when it hurt. And your daddy and I, we're going to make sure you always know you're enough, exactly as you are. Adrian would find them there, joining his family on the bench, wrapping them both in his arms. They'd sit together as the sun set, 3 people who'd found their way home. Amara had tried to leave quietly, pregnant and afraid, convinced she didn't deserve the love being offered. But Adrian had stopped her with one sentence. And that sentence had led to this. A life beyond anything she'd imagined. Not because of money or status or legacy, but because 2 people chose to be brave enough to love without limits. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one was just beginning. Thank you so much for taking this journey with Amara and Adrian. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it when Adrian proposed in the boardroom? When Amara discovered her father's fortune? When they named their daughter after both grandmothers? I love hearing what resonated with you. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button because I have so many more incredible stories coming your way. Stories about love that defies odds, justice that arrives exactly when it's needed, and people who discover they were always worthy of everything they dreamed. Remember, you are enough. You always have been. Your story matters. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay when everything tells you to run. Until next time, keep believing in second chances, unexpected fortunes, and love that refuses to give up. See you in the next story.